the first part of the period will start from 3000 BC to 700 AD. It is 711 AD. The second part of the story will be 711 AD to almost 1600 AD. That is generally called as the dark period. Now, after 1600 AD, the very purpose of keeping it, because the East India Company got established on December 31st, 1600. So from December 31st, 1600 to 1947 is generally the third period. That was the period of colonization. That was the rule which was done by the great Mughals of this country, all of them. And then starts what we call as the New India after the adoption of the Constitution. But my period is limited only up to, the discussion is limited only up to 7th century AD. Because as it is indicated, ancient India, see, most of the advent of Sankaracharya in the 8th century AD, remember, was the classification, that which you have to take into consideration. And what has happened before that is the purpose of discussion, which I am going to carry forward. Now, you may ask me, what exactly are the sources on this matter? Now, when we speak about the sources, naturally, many of the scholars would speak about the Vedas. Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. These are the 4 Vedas. And then we have what we call as the epics. The Ramayana as well as the Mahabharata are the 2 epics from which we find inspirational instances and incidents on this subject. And then we have the stories written by the great sages. There's a lot of them are there, not 1 or 2. It may be of Narada, it may be of Manu, it may be of Yajnavalkya, it may be of Kamandaka, it may be of Shukra, and many others, not 1 or 2. So you have the Smritis as well as the other one, Vedas and other writings, Agni Purana, most of them. In Agni Purana, there are several references to the privileges and immunities of diplomatic envoys. Now, let me start with the Ramayana first. And before that, we cannot think of it, because only in Ramayana these concepts came in. Before I speak of Ramayana, just I intend to speak to you the privileges and immunities of the present day under the Vienna Convention on the Privileges and Diplomatic Envoys. Now, under the privileges and immunities of Diplomatic Convention of 1961, first and foremost, a diplomatic envoy is sent as the envoy or the representative of the head of the state to a foreign country. And since he is sent as the representative of the head of the state to a foreign country, is he entitled to represent or to claim immunity? Was the first question. Under the present day international law, he is entitled to have absolute immunity. And not only is entitled to have absolute immunity, but he is entitled to have privileges and immunities to his family members as well. Now, the fundamental principle, but this principle was allowed or practiced in ancient India and a period of epics for the question. Now, when we speak about this, 1 or 2 things I just intend to speak to you. One instance happened to be the classification of the ambassadors. Today we have the classification of ambassadors, which are generally called as the ambassadors 1. Then you have the charge d'affaires, and then many other classifications also made, charge d'affaires, and thereafterwards we have the plenipotentiaries, a person who is given a letter to negotiate on a particular matter. So we will go abroad and negotiate the matter, and they will come back and report to the higher authorities. Now, such things was prevalent. Now, you may be interested to know what type of classifications were prevalent in ancient India. Now, the first classification that was made was ambassador was called as a Duta. So a Duta was a person who was representing the person of the sovereign. So when he was representing the person of the sovereign, he is entitled to have absolute immunity. He should not be touched. and he should not be caused any harm by the receiving state. He should be protected in all circumstances. And in the event of any harm anywhere into his body or his person, the concerned country should seek his apology. And the killing of the ambassador, as per the tradition established in those days, was supposed to be the greatest sin. And the greatest sin that the concerned ruler, who has received the ambassador, is committing against the state. In one of the verses, especially the great writer points out, it is Hanuman. He points out, not only it is said by Hanuman, it is being said by even our Kautilya in his Arthashastra. He points out the killing of the ambassador will give him the worst punishment, and since it is the worst sin. And remember, it will sink the empire. The entire empire will sink into oblivion. So the king always should be, the receiving king always should be careful, and he should be protected at all times. Now, having said this, I just intend to give one instance, an instance relating to the incident that has taken place in Ramayana. So in Ramayana, you see, Lord Rama has sent his Duta, the ambassador, to the court of Ravana. When he was sent his envoy to the court of Ravana, Ravana naturally, remember, was not willing to negotiate on anything, or was not willing to negotiate on anything except related to Sita. And he just tells everyone, the rest of the world, there can be no negotiation as regards Sita. So the returning of Sita is out of question. You don't go for any sandhi or for any treaty. Treaties were called as sandhis at that time. However, by taking these factors into consideration, Rama sends Hanuman as the negotiator. Now, irrespective of the insult and the humiliation that was caused to Hanuman, he goes to the court of Ravana. And in the open court, he tries to insult. And when the insult was continued and done, naturally, he was not in a position to withstand it, because several allegations were made. Earlier, he had made the allegation against Angada also, Wali's son. Now, these were instances which are given, and he sets fire. What is to be understood in Puranas and Itihasas? If the ambassador is reprehensible and violative of the customs and traditions which are established by them, he can be disfigured. That is what Ravana has done to Hanuman. Thus far, his tail was cut, and then the story, I don't wish to speak on this. His tail can be cut. Only that much, nothing beyond. So this is the incident which we come from the time of what we call as Ramayana. Then we come to the period of Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya was always assisted by an able Brahmin reader, and it is this person who wrote the famous Arthashastra. I just intend to quote a statement from Sardar Panikkar. K.M. Panikkar happened to be an IFS officer, and later he became the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Mysore on his retirement. One of the great scholars of this country has produced. In one of his books, he points out, if the administration of today is analyzed to its base, the doctrine and practice of Chanakya is still to be found in force. That itself is enough. If the administration of today, if the administration of India today is analyzed to its base, the doctrine and practice of Chanakya is still found to be in force. That is, remember, speaks about the contribution of Arthashastra. Now, Arthashastra has 14 books. And in 14 books, it discusses several aspects relating to diplomacy, administration, environment, and all of them it speaks. Although it speaks so many things, when it comes to the ambassadors, now it makes a reference to the qualities of ambassadors. When I speak about the qualities of ambassadors, especially the Chanakya as well as the Bhishmacharya in the Mahabharata in his Shanti Purana, when he was after the completion of the war, uh, Lord Krishna tells him, if you want to learn the principles of Dharma, learn from the great Acharya, who is the elder to us all. Since he, the elder statesman, survived for almost 800 years, you should take lessons of Dharma from him. Now, at that time, in the Shanti Purana, he speaks about the 7 qualities of an ambassador. What type of qualities he should have. The first one happened to be high birth. Ambassadors, and the one who becomes an ambassador is for high birth. The second one is good family. The second one is eloquence. He should be very eloquent. Now the fourth one is cleverness. He should be very clever. Then the other one is sweet speech. Then loyalty. Then good memory. Loyalty and good memory are the last. The 7th one is good memory. Now this is very much required because I don't know whether you know this or there is a great scholar by name Harold Nicholson. Harold Nicholson, in his work on diplomacy, points out the ambassador is a person who is sent abroad to do the nastiest things in the nicest manner. Ambassador is a person who is sent abroad to do the nastiest things in the nicest manner. He would be more clever because he is the one who creates allies for his king. He is the one who breaks the allies. There lies the importance of the ambassador. Then the other one, he speaks about that an envoy, this is what Kautilya has spoken, Vishnugupta. Envoy should never be killed, even if he is a Chandala. He cannot be killed, or a Brahmin. And he opposes the killing of such people because who represents the state. Then he says ambassadors should always be talented because they are representing the country. When they are representing the country should be in a position to able to appoint the best of the best. That is what is being spoken in the Arthashastra of Kautilya. But at that time, one important thing is to the period of the Mauryas, especially the Mauryas and or afterwards. The embassies, when we speak of, they used to say ad hoc embassies. Ad hoc embassies simply means, remember, to realize the objective and goal in a particular purpose, some people are appointed as ambassadors. So when we go to see this, there were no permanent embassies as such. But then here and there were certain offices which are established by way of permanent embassies. This is being called today as permanent embassies because they were living more than 6 months or more than 1 year to keep stability of the two countries. And the stability of the two countries should last long. That is why they wanted to have this person as the representative of the personal sovereign there. That is how things have come in. So when you analyze, because I've been reading the articles which are written by almost all people, I have not spread any one of them on many things since I started when I was assigned the work. So all of them, they go to the extent of pointing out. See, he should be a qualified person. A qualified person should be authoritative whenever he speaks. He should not jumble, and he should not be in a position to give any colored interpretation. Always in his mind is to remember, obtain the security and safety of the sovereign and its people. This is what is being spoken when we speak of an ambassador there. Now, thereafter, the office is continued and we don't bother about the office of ambassadors. Now, today it is totally different, which I shall explain whenever there is a question which is being put to me afterwards. Now, the other important thing which I just wanted to speak happened to be extradition and asylum. Now, when we speak of extradition and asylum, especially the concept of asylum is very difficult to grapple with. See, you may ask me why it is very difficult to grapple with. See, the villages of those days ultimately established and came together. And they came together, and a tribal chief between the villages was appointed at the head. And he was called the tribal chief. And thereafter, several villages joined together in one region, and they elected a Raja. So he was called the prince, and he was being respected. And the hereditary form of monarchy continued. It was in a limited scale. That is why you cannot grapple with. Now, I intend to give you one or two instances of asylum. This our people speak at every length whenever they go to. I will give 7 instances from the Puranas and Itihasas, because I don't want to bring any other things other than the ancient India and antiquity. Now, one instance happened to be the instance of Lord Rama. Lord Rama, all of you know, he is the king of Aryavarta. And this king, when he was the king of Aryavarta, relinquishes everything and goes to forest. But he was still the king, being the eldest son. And Bharata refused to accept his name, and only on his Paduka, he was actually ruling the country. And when he goes to Kishkinda, remember, Sugriva approaches him. When Sugriva approaches him and tells him that the differences between him as well as Wali, his elder brother, he said, I will give you asylum. And the whole Aryavarta is mine. You leave Kishkinda and come with me, join with me, stay with me. And thereafterwards, they plan to eliminate Wali, and Wali was eliminated. Although it was very difficult to kill him, at the end, he was killed. You may not be knowing the last part of the fight between Wali as well as Sugriva, if you know the history. Now, from a distant place, which was not seen by Wali, Lord Rama stands and gets his, takes his, what we call his bow and arrow. He puts an arrow, and the arrow actually enters into the stomach of the great Wali. And the Wali asks this Lord Rama, where was the need to kill me? If you want the Sita, I would have gone and personally procured for you. At least you should have come and tell me. Because your cowardness, you could not come. Then Wali was satisfied and he said, I don't want to live now. He asks a question. Rama puts a question. If you want to survive on giving up Sugriva's wife Ruma, you can survive and rule Kishkinda for years, so long as you want. At that time, Wali tells Lord Rama, what you said? If you want to survive, I can remove the arrow without any pain. Says, having seen you in my life, I don't want any life again and rule this. Please give me moksha, don't remove the arrow. That is the end of Wali. So what they speak is, it was here when the question of asylum comes into picture for the first time in what we call as the period of Ramayana. Then thereafter, the second one happened to be the instance which all of you know. Now, Vasudeva and Devaki, they were taken in a chariot by Lord Kamsa. At that time, there was an Ashriravani. Some message comes from top. The child born to you, the 8th child born to you, Devaki, is going to eliminate your uncle, that is Kamsa. Then, he puts into the prison and waits for the 8th child to come. In spite of the fact that he waited for the 8th child to come, he could not kill because the child was actually taken to Nanda Gokula. See, that was the asylum which was given by the king of Nanda Gokula. So Nanda and Yashoda takes care of the child. The child grows up there. It grew in the distance. Then it grew. Afterwards, remember, when he got matured himself, he goes there and kills him in his backyard. That is what the story is all. Now, many people have written this is the first asylum you find in Mahabharata. So it was given to him, and thereafterwards it is finished. Now, thereafterwards, remember, when we come to the period of the Pandavas, there is another illustration which is being given. Now, Pandavas, when Krishna was sent for a peace, a lasting peace, a treaty between them, the Kauravas and the Shakuni refused to have it. And thereafterwards, remember, when they lost the dice game, they go to the forest. And when they go to the forest, before they go to the forest, there was an agreement. The agreement is first 12 years, they should not be traced anywhere by anyone. If they are traced as Pandavas by anybody, they should restart. That is the starting period. Again, 12 years. And the last 1 year especially, they should live in Ajnatavas. So no one should know where they are living. This was the message which was sent. Now what happens is, ultimately, during the period of Ajnatavas, they go to the court of the great, what we call as the Aryavarta king, the Virat. When they go to the court of Virat gives them asylum. That is how it is being interpreted. The ruler, the Viratadipati, the ruler Virata gives them asylum. And initially he gave them asylum. And when they came to know that these are the Pandavas, 5 Pandavas, he helps them in again obtaining the throne. That is the story that is being spoken during the time of the Mahabharata. Now then comes what we call as Vishwamitra and Harishchandra, again mythology. Now Vishwamitra happened to be little, remember, always used to get angry for no reason. So he was living in a kingdom. And that kingdom was not prepared to tolerate him. The king said, out from here, don't go, don't be here. So when he was not allowed to stay, Vishwamitra, because the differences between him and the king, goes to the court of Harishchandra. Having gone to the court of Harishchandra, he begs for shelter and refuge. And this shelter and refuge in Harishchandra's kingdom was considered as asylum under the present day international law. And he lived there for long. Although there were many differences between Harishchandra as well as Vishwamitra, the great Muni. Remember, this was given for the simple reason because Harishchandra believed in the concept of Dharma. Not only did he believe in the concept of Dharma, he practiced the concept of Dharma to its logical conclusion. That is where, remember, it was practiced in mythology as well. Then we come to the period of the Mauryas. When we come to the period of the Mauryas, the Mauryan emperors ruled the country. Having ruled the country, remember, they established a very good administration because Chanakya was there. And Mauryas became very old also. And after becoming old, what has happened was Chandragupta Maurya immediately converted himself to the Jain religion and relinquished the throne. And having relinquished the throne to Ashoka, remember what has happened was this fellow comes to Karnataka. Having come to Karnataka, he goes to a particular place known as Shravana-Belagula. Shravana-Belagula is in the Hassan district today, and we have a great monolithic pillar of Mahavira. And he was given shelter by Bhadrabhav, who happened to be a Jain scholar as well. And he spent his last days by way of asylum in Shravana-Belagula in the Hassan district, and he was given shelter by the great Guru Bhadrabhav. Now, when I mean shelter, no, it is not only Bhadrabhav, because the rulers who are ruling there. They are the ones who protect and give him shelter till his death. This is how, and he was buried here. This is the history part which we get by reading. Then the other one happened to be, the 6th one happened to be Buddhist monks.
Yes.
during the time of Ashoka, there were several Buddhist scholars who visited the country. And these Buddhist scholars who visited the country were given shelter by way of, they say asylum. In fact, if you strictly interpret in the present day, it may be a refugee status. They came to this country and they are given asylum. Many of them enjoyed the privileges and other things. And it actually helped the great Ashoka to promote the Buddhism throughout the world. Now, the later part, after the Kalinga War and converting himself to the Buddhist religion, he was in a position to do so many things. First is he sent his the son and daughter. One is Sangamitra and other one is Mahendra to the state of Ceylon. In addition to this, he has sent his envoys, diplomats. I didn't speak other because I didn't want to repeat this. He sent his diplomats to the state of Syria. He sent his diplomat to the state of Macedonia. Syria, Macedonia, Egypt, and several other countries, including Burma, Java, and Singapore. The present day, all of them, because at that time it was part of Indonesia. So Indonesia as well. This is actually called as the concept of asylum in international law in those days. Now, having said this much, I just wanted to speak to you a few of the other important developments which have taken place in the ancient period and in the ancient history. Now, one or two of them I just intend to make a reference. One important development which I intend to speak to you here happened to be, see, most of the concepts which were based on Dharma, even the ruler of a country is subordinate to the principles of Dharma. Dharma has to be obeyed first, whether he is a ruler or whether he is subordinate. All of them are bound by Dharma. And that is where the fear of what we call as Dharma was working in everybody's mind. So people, when you tell it is against ethics, it is against morality, it's against religion, they would get convinced by these things. Now, thereafterwards, for example, you take it this way, during the course of the Kalinga War, 3 lakh people were killed or eliminated at that time. And in spite of eliminating 3 lakhs of people, the man was so cruel at that time, he relinquishes everything and accepts the Buddhist faith. Having accepted the Buddhist faith, he started, remember, following it completely. And remember, an emperor ruling a country, diverting himself to the cause of religion and spreading the message. And later, the entire investment which was made by the king was to promote Buddhism in this country, not only here, but the rest of the world as well. And you know how many Buddhist countries are today in Southeast Asia. Most of them, they come from these others. Now, one of the important facts which I just wanted to speak about it, Hanuman always used to say that when we appoint ambassadors, they should be talented people. Then they should be in a position to have certain characters as well. I repeated this, but I intend to speak about this. Now, one important development which has taken place during the time of Harshavardhana of Taneshwar is by a Buddhist scholar, a great Buddhist scholar, I can just name you by name, Xuan Zhang. He visited his capital. Having visited his capital, remember, he was given shelter. And this shelter was interpreted today as asylum under international law. He was not only given asylum because he was given help to promote Buddhism by way of writing books. That is the main contribution. That is why I said it had taken place in the 7th century. Now, another important development I just intend to speak to you about Megasthenes. Megasthenes happened to be the ambassador of Syria who comes to this country. And having come to this country, remember, he was given shelter by the great Chandragupta Maurya. And when he gave him shelter, remember, a lot of things are being said about it. He was he was given facilitated in such a way wherein he was able to write his journals. They don't say books, and his journals were published from time to time. And the contribution which was made by Megasthenes in his Indica has helped the Indians especially to reconstruct and rewrite the history of India after the Mauryas. And this message nobody tells. I found in one of the articles when I was reading. How did it help? Because he was seen as an independent man. Now, he gives two illustrations for this. Now, you might be knowing Megasthenes came to this country. And thereafter, remember, he was defeated by Chandragupta Maurya. And after defeating him, remember, he accepts him as the envoy or the messenger of that country and treats him, and he stayed here, and one of his daughters married to Chandragupta Maurya. Now later what has happened was Alexander the Great came to this country. When Alexander the Great came to this country, he was appointed by the Syrian king to encourage by the Syrian king to go to India and annex the state of India. At that time, he was told about the qualities of the Indians' head and heart by Alexander the Great. So when he first visited the state of India, remember, Porus appears before him. When Lord Porus appeared before him, Lord Porus was defeated by Alexander the Great. Porus was defeated by Alexander the Great. And the next day, after the defeat, remember, he actually welcomes the defeated ruler Porus. Alexander puts a simple question. Mr. Porus, we have lost the battle. Tell me how you should be treated. But at that time, Porus simply tells him, treat me like a ruler because I have ruled this region for several years. Then remember, he was treated like a ruler, and he was not only given the territory to himself, and in addition, he was given other territory which were acquired by Alexander the Great during the time of his return journey. So these are the illustrations which we find, remember, from the stories, and wonderful discussions are being carried out. I'm just only giving a tip of the iceberg how it is being done.